All right, how's everybody doing? After lunch, I have to wake you up a little bit because you're all in a little bit of a carb coma, but I'm super excited. My name's Clary. I was on a little bit earlier today, so I'm not going to go through my whole background. I host a podcast called Success Story, and I'm actually in my comfort zone right now because I'm interviewing. So this is what I do. This is what I do for a living. So
were you on the hot seat earlier?
I was.
Ooh.
Yeah, I don't like that switch up. So today we have Jaime Leverton. She is the CEO of ReserveOne, former CEO of Hut 8, where she made it the first public company to hold Bitcoin on its balance sheet and turned a struggling miner into a $3 billion infrastructure play. Now she's running ReserveOne, a $1 billion digital asset treasury company, 80% Bitcoin, 20% diversified, and it is backed by Galaxy, Kraken, and Pantera. She's a Canadian kid who started coding at 3, very young. She worked through IBM, BlackBerry, and she bet everything on Bitcoin when it mattered. So, Jaime, thanks for joining me.
Oh, thanks for having me.
We are both Canadian kids who accidentally ended up on stage in Miami. Give me the backstory. Funny enough, we were at same university, same company at some point, and we found that out last night. But tell me where you came from.
Yeah, we both went to University of Ottawa, which is the coldest capital in the world. So we've learned how to suffer. We also worked for Canada's national telecommunications company, so suffered in a different way. And how did we get here? So look, I started my career actually at IBM before you were finished university. After doing a master's degree with a concentration in marketing informatics, so like the precursor to what is now big data or business intelligence. And then through a series of risk-taking and wild decisions, my career journey took me into doing transformation work. So that's how I ended up at BlackBerry and lots of other places, really focused on driving change, improving performance of business units or companies that were struggling, which is ultimately how I became the CEO of Hut 8 in 2020. It had struggled on the back of the Bitcoin crash around COVID in the spring, and I convinced myself that I could take that company and turn it into something unique and different and grow it out, and that's exactly what I did over 3.5 years, and it was an absolutely amazing ride, and I just love the industry. I'm super blessed to have had a career that gets me excited to get out of bed every day. So
Hut 8, that was you brought that company back from the dead, basically, for lack of a better description.
Yeah, it was very much on the verge of bankruptcy. I don't think that's a secret.
So what did you discover that allowed you to bring that company back? What was the play that everyone else missed?
I think there were a lot of things that we got right in the early days. The timing was good as far as the
more credit. Just timing.
Timing was good in the beginning. I mean, I knew how to look at fixing the balance sheet and focusing on a strategic direction that I thought made sense, including in January of 2021, I was the first mining CEO to say, look, we're not selling the Bitcoin we produce. We're here because we're long Bitcoin, we're believers in Bitcoin, and we're frankly short fiat. And that was a decision that I think was pivotal. It got a lot of attention, a lot of excitement, and we were able to be the first Canadian company to dual list on the NASDAQ in that spring, which was really important to us from a liquidity perspective. And then we were kind of, to use a Canadian term, we had a sense of where the puck was going, and we made some pretty big bets. We were the first to diversify by buying power plants. We were the first to get into data centers and high performance computing and AI when we made the purchase of a data center business in early 2022. I took a lot of heat for that one. People told me I didn't believe in Bitcoin. I did very much believe in Bitcoin, but we needed some capital diversification, and the multiples that data centers get versus what Bitcoin mining companies get, it's just a material material difference. And so we made that pivot in 22. And look, most of the space has subsequently made that pivot as well. It proved to be the right strategic direction.
It's so interesting because what you were able to do is actually take this like cross set of all your different skills, like a true polymath, right? And you took all these different skill sets, and that's what allowed you to see the opportunity in data centers. So when you look at Bitcoin mining, there are differences, obviously, and I want you to go through the differences and the similarities between Bitcoin mining data centers and then these high-performance computing data centers. Like retroactively, hindsight, everything looks so clear and obvious, but what allowed you to see that opportunity? Because that's disruption, right?
Yeah.
You're disrupting, ironically, in a highly disruptive category already.
That's right.
By bringing in sort of legacy ideas. What did you see? How did you figure out that this was going to be a good play?
I think I was a bit. You have to be good and you have to work hard to be lucky. But I had come from the traditional data center space, so everything I knew about how data centers were supposed to run and how they ran, how they interacted with the grid, how you built them, the infrastructure used, how you staffed them, how you secured them. That's the world I came from, and then I got to the Bitcoin mining world, and everything's kind of turned on its head. The way a Bitcoin mine interacts with the grid, the way the capital required to build out your infrastructure. Just as an example, you can build a megawatt of Bitcoin mining for about $400,000 or $500,000. To build a megawatt of high performance data center, you're looking at $10 to $12 million a megawatt. So just a massive difference as far as how capital is allocated, and that it all has to do with, again, the interaction with power, with uptime, redundancy, and I kind of saw along the way that there's a world where we can get more convergence. I think that we'll increasingly see a middle ground where companies, especially that are doing these massive AI data centers, can start to think about sacrificing some uptime to move faster, to save costs. And so I think just the benefit of living in both worlds allows you to see things that other people maybe can't see because they've only lived in one or the other.
Super smart. I think that's actually the best. Those are the best entrepreneurs that can take all these different diverse skill sets and different diverse ideas from different worlds and combine it, create something new. I'm curious with ReserveOne, was that the idea? Like when you think about digital asset treasury companies, is that idea the convergence of new and old? Like, do you still look at what you're doing at ReserveOne in the same light as what you did with Hut 8?
Yeah, I kind of look at it as a next iteration. When I first took over Hut in 2020, the Bitcoin miners and MicroStrategy were really the only way for investors to get exposure to Bitcoin or crypto through an equity. And there was a really large world of investors that wanted that exposure, but they wanted it in traditional financial rails. They wanted it in their 401k, or they wanted to use their existing broker or their Robinhood account or whatever. And so when we think about the digital asset treasury space and what we've built here at ReserveOne, which is unique in that it's diversified, it's active, we'll be looking to generate returns on the assets while we hold them on our balance sheet. And it's really an opportunity, almost like the next wave of, I think, what institutional and retail investors are looking for in an equity, where they want exposure to the upgrade of the financial system, but in the way they like to invest or consume financial products.
So you mentioned MicroStrategy, and Michael Saylor is a name that we probably, most of us know. MicroStrategy, Michael Saylor, they went 100% in on Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. So you're doing 80% Bitcoin, 20% diversified.
Yep.
So defend the thesis.
Well, Saylor is all in on Bitcoin. He's passive. He's never put the assets to work. Now he's kind of bridged a little bit in what he's been able to offer through the prefs, and that's a way to give investors yield, but without doing anything with the Bitcoin that they actually hold. I think yield is important for for any company, you ultimately that you have operating expenses that need to be paid. Running a public company isn't free, and so I think generating returns on the assets is important to be able to cover operating expenses, to be able to reinvest into increasing the digital assets on your balance sheet. So for us, having a yield component was important. We were really inspired when it came to the makeup by what we were hearing from the federal government. So obviously the strategic Bitcoin reserve, but then also the digital asset stockpile, where they've indicated they intend to maintain a certain number of assets, digital assets they confiscate, initially Ethereum, Solana, ADA, and XRP. And so I think just having a diversification into those assets makes a lot of sense as we see the government increasingly looking to get behind certain projects. And then we are looking to allocate based on free float market cap and their ability to generate yield. And again, yield is easier to get on assets you can stake today versus Bitcoin. Although I think that we're going to see significant evolution in the ability to generate yield on Bitcoin in more sophisticated ways in this cycle, actually.
Should retail investors start to look at like how you put together a thesis about what you invest in? Is this a smart way for retail investors to start to explore the market, to understand what to look at and what to pay attention to?
I do think our target market it's not the people that have been in the space for a long time that are really comfortable trading online or, with self-custody. This is more we're building something more for the crypto curious that's still most comfortable with traditional financial rails, but wants exposure to something that's diversified and run by a group of people that they trust. We're probably one of the older, if not oldest, management teams and board of directors in this space. So I think that's part of how we're looking to talk to investors. It's more of a crossover, bringing people on the journey into crypto that maybe weren't ready to go there prior to the last year or so.
So with Hut 8, you made Hut 8 the first public company to hold Bitcoin on the balance sheet. Now you're raising $1 billion for ReserveOne, correct? So what's this bigger bet that you're making now with ReserveOne?
Yeah, it's really about giving a diversified opportunity to investors that again still want the traditional rails.
If you were looking at all these Bitcoin miners that are pivoting to AI, every software company is becoming a treasury, and you don't have to name names, or you can if you want, but who's building something real versus who's just chasing a narrative, who's just chasing like what's fun and popular and topical right now? So said differently, for an investor, how do you know who to pay attention to versus who to stay away from?
Look, I think you really have to do your homework, and anytime you put your dollars to work, you need to understand who you're not just what you're investing in, but the team behind it. Full disclosure, I am on the board of Riot Platform, so obviously I have a bias to my friends at Riot, and then they just announced an amazing deal with AMD just on this pivot discussion. Obviously, I'm a big Hut shareholder and have a lot of affinity for that company and story, and they announced an amazing deal in the space at their Louisiana site a few weeks ago. There are lots of great teams in the space, but I think everyone has to do their homework. Not all teams are created equally. You really need to look for who they've brought in and the kind of the experience that they've built out that comes from the traditional data center world. I don't think from an operational perspective, I think it's difficult to expect a traditional mining team to just turn around and build a high-performance computing data center. You're going to need to staff differently and tool differently. So that's important that you look at this skills matrix.
If everything works out at ReserveOne, which we're all hoping it does, what does the world look like in, say, 5 years from now?
5 years is so long.
It is very long. We can do 6 months if you want.
I know, right? Look, I think this year's an incredibly important year for our industry. We really, really need regulatory clarity solidified. We need to get clarity through so that we can get to the next wave of building in our space, the next wave of onboarding investors that have been reticent to come over and start to do the work. I think that last leg of regulatory clarity is critical for our next 1 to 5 years.
If you could wave a wand and have regulatory clarity on one particular thing, what would be the one piece of legislature that would move the needle in the most meaningful way for you?
Yeah, it's definitely clarity. I don't think we're going to get everything that we want out of clarity. I'm afraid that DeFi might end up being the sacrificial lamb to get it over the line, which is really unfortunate. But I think ultimately getting the codification of the other assets, how they're regulated, who's responsible for what, is the most important thing that we need done this year. Before midterms.
Before midterms, so we're not talking 5 years, we're talking.
No, we're talking now, like we're late.
Last question. Well, actually, first of all, where can people connect with you, and where can people go check out ReserveOne, and what should they know about it?
ReserveOne.com. My parents gave me this wild name, Jaime, but it's spelled like Jaime or Jaime, and Leverton, super unique. So the benefit is I get all of my handles because there's no other Jaime Leverton on the planet. So Twitter, LinkedIn, WhatsApp, Telegram, I'm very easy to find.
If you could leave the audience with sort of one final thought, obviously you're in this space, you see different peers, different entrepreneurs, different innovations. Like, what gets you excited now that people might not know about? It could be super open-ended. It doesn't have to be in digital assets in particular, or it can be whatever.
I'm really excited about the work we're seeing where companies like Figure, Securitize, Carlos is just amazing, and he's had incredible growth this year. We're actually finally seeing real-world use cases get solved with blockchain and get some escape velocity and institutional support. And they've done that by taking a problem and using the tools available in our world to solve it, as opposed to kind of boiling the ocean. I think that's a part of the industry that's very exciting, and I hope we see a lot more of.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Give a hand for Jaime Leverton, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.